Welcome to Diasporaa, the show where we share the remarkable stories of immigrants from the Indian subcontinent. I'm your host, Aditya Mehta, and each week we sit down with individuals who have made the journey over and explore their experiences, their challenges, their triumphs. We delve into their unique perspectives on adapting to a new culture while staying connected to their roots. Today, we are joined by Shalabh Chandra, inventor and C-suite executive in the healthcare industry. Originally from Patna in India, he's had an illustrious career spanning multiple countries, working with companies like Phillips and Quest Diagnostics and Space Labs Healthcare. He's also an IITN and a Wharton MBA, and we're going to unpack all of that today. Shalabh, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Aditya.
So, you're our second guest from Patna, but the first one who's actually lived in Patna. Our other guest, Juhi, spent most of her life in Ahmedabad. So, question for you: what American city would Patna be?
I would say, based on my experience, it'll be Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay.
Small city. When we lived in that city, neighbors knew each other. We would help each other out. It was really good at raising kids over there and so on. So very much like Patna, small city feel.
Yeah. I would say that Cleveland is a little bit past its prime in the sense being from the Rust Belt.
Yeah.
I've been there several times for Amazon work, but I don't think Patna is like that in the sense it's a growing city. And as with India, rest of India, being from Bombay, I call it rest of India. I don't know much about Bihar and Patna. It's one of the few states I haven't been to. But the stereotypes are very set that it's a less developed part of the country. There is a certain lawlessness in UP and Bihar.
Yeah.
But from what you describe, people get on with their lives just like they would in any other city, right? Yeah.
No, absolutely. I think every city, every country, every company goes through their ups and downs, right?
Yeah.
So if you think about Patna and Patliputra, right? That was the capital of Ashoka.
Yeah.
Ashoka was in 200, 300 BC.
Yeah.
He was the one who united most of the country.
Yeah.
So, and Buddhism started, and he actually pushed for making that a religion and driving that. So,
Yeah.
a lot of history in Patna and Patliputra and Bihar. Bodh Gaya is in Bihar.
Yeah.
So, a lot of those things are great. But what happens is, over a period of time, when all these things are structured and set up, when new wave comes in, it's very difficult to change that old and make a new wave. So it's one of those cycles that Patna is stuck in, but I think now it's coming back up again, as you said.
I was reading a book by William Dalrymple about ancient India and its influence on the world, which is probably not very well known. And all these were actually very sophisticated cultures and very prosperous parts of the country centuries ago. And somewhere, I guess, with the colonial times, the downfall began. India is changing a lot right now. And I can see it in all the places I go to, that there is a certain scale that is there in India now. There is a certain excitement. So have you been going back regularly, and do you see that kind of transformation happening there as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Also in the mindset, right? We were in a mindset earlier that was more of being ruled.
Yeah.
And now it's a mindset of, okay, we can do this and do a better job at it ourselves. So I think I can see that happening.
That was very intentional by the British.
Sure.
Because the word for the government, sarkar, is the same as the word for master. And
very good.
There's another book called The Case for India by Will Durant. He's an American who visited India in the 1920s. It's a very short read, 100 pages, very difficult to find. I have a copy if you like. It talks about how they've systematically kind of destroyed the spirit of the country and intentionally, be it divide and rule, be it lack of access to education. And it opens up your mind to what colonialism really did to the Indian mind versus just looting the money from the country. So I didn't have any negative or positive impression of colonialism in general. I didn't know enough about it, but this really opened up my eyes to that. What's Bihari culture like? Again, speaking out of ignorance here, I know Bhojpuri language. It's a big pop culture, big movie industry.
Yeah.
And Biharis love their music. What else would you think are kind of high points about Bihari culture?
Yeah. Growing up, India being the third world country, within India, Bihar was like third world state, right?
Sure.
So growing up, even when I was in IIT Kanpur, if you told people that you were a Bihari, they're like, Bihari?
Yeah.
And you were looked down.
Yeah.
So that was, so a lot of growing up era was with that mindset. But then more recently, a few 10, 15 years, 20 years or so, there was a lot more pride in what was there, what is there now,
Yeah.
and what is becoming of it. You'll see a lot of very successful people from that part of the country.
Yeah.
So in terms of the culture part, I mean, obviously, litti chokha,
Yeah.
from the food perspective, is
Yeah.
something that we yearn for, and it's actually
Yeah.
really fun to have. Bihari language, it's a very sing-song sort of a
Yeah.
language. Like Shalabh will be called. Shalabh, there'll be a wa and everything. So it's very fun. So we actually, even my friends now, not from Bihar, we will do things like that. So like the language used in a different way, if you will.
When the state was split into Jharkhand and
Yeah.
Bihar,
Yeah.
and at the same time, I think Uttaranchal was created out of UP and Chhattisgarh out of MP. How was that perceived? Like, did locals find it to be necessary, or are Jharkhand people that much different from Bihari people?
From my perspective, right, growing up in Bihar with Jamshedpur and Ranchi and everything being part of Bihar,
Yeah.
never perceived it to be different.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
again, I don't understand the reasoning behind these things that happen, but for me, it's still the same.
I mean, it would have been a state with 140 million people if it was still one state,
Right,
something like that.
right.
Yeah.
Maybe that might be the reason.
Yeah, but I mean, Chhattisgarh took all, and Jharkhand kind of took all the mining resources with them, and Uttaranchal obviously had a different subculture. But
Yeah.
I'm surprised there are not more states in India. Maharashtra has over 100 million people. UP has 160 something million. They would be top 10 populated countries by themselves if they were, What made you decide to study abroad? And preface to that, what was your educational journey? I think you spent some time in Delhi as well.
Yes.
And then how was that experience, and what led to then deciding to study abroad?
Yeah. So I went to St. Michael's High School, which was an English medium school.
Yeah.
And then from there, went to DPS in Delhi. And they felt that I couldn't prepare well for IIT Kanpur over there. And, just the interactions with the teachers and stuff were not as positive as I thought it would be.
Yeah.
The first time away from home. So I talked to my dad and I said, well, I want to go back to Patna. Well, all the admissions had closed by then. So I could only get to, I hate saying this, but second tier school.
Yeah.
The only way out from a second tier school was to do well in one of the competitive exams.
Sure.
And I was always good in math and science. So IIT made sense. So work with the professors. The professors in that second tier school even were very, very, just that the cohorts were not that great.
Yeah.
So 5 of us decided to work really hard, get into IIT, and all 5 of us, 4 of us in the first attempt, and another individual the next attempt, we all got into IIT.
Wow.
And we all actually went to IIT Kanpur.
Was it as competitive back then as it is these days to get in?
I would think so.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's even more competitive now. But at that time, we were about 70,000 people applied and 2,000 would get in.
Yeah.
So now I don't know what the percentage is now, but I still hear that it's
And there are
difficult.
more IITs as well, right? But I think the original group remains more prestigious still, or does it not matter anymore?
Coming from that era, I would think so.
Yeah.
But I think there are really good candidates, very good people graduating from IIT even today.
Yeah.
I've met some graduates from 2005, 2010, really smart individuals, doing really exceptionally well.
What do you think makes IITs that prestigious? How are they different from other top engineering schools?
Yeah. So if you go back to the history of IIT, right?
Yeah.
The IITs were founded with institutions in the US, right? So MIT, Harvard, and other schools from here collaborated within India and the institutions and helped form that, right? So there were a lot of professors from here, a lot of people educated from here who would go out there. Most of my professors had studied in the US. So they brought a perspective which was different, had been changed over the British rule, which was just rote studying.
Yeah.
They brought more innovative thinking and more creative approach to academics. That helped.
Yeah.
So that was one big thing. The second big thing was that the people, the students competing and qualifying were really a very strong point. So if you put that as a combination, success is going to happen. And that's why things happen at IIT Kanpur.
Would you say the research focus also helped? Because that's not usually a thing in India with higher education institutions.
Yeah.
But it is a thing with colleges here. And I feel IITs are more research oriented than the average Indian institution.
Yeah, true. Having said that, IITs were focused on PhD students and master students, but most of the resources for IIT was focused on the undergrads. So they were the professors. Like, what happens is when you have institutions that become big and are focused on research, they will have like students teaching courses, and then professors will come in for certain things, or professors will teach the courses, and the students will be the TAs, or others would be doing the sessions, the smaller sessions.
Yeah.
In IITs, the whole focus was on the undergrad students, and the professors taught the students, and they come with significant number of years of experience. So they know how to guide the students, because it's not just about teaching, it's about teaching the process of learning.
Sure.
And having done that over many years and having that experience, they will always do a much better job than if you had a TA come in, 3 or 4 years or 2 years out of school trying to teach kids how to learn. So there's a lot of advantage from that perspective. So yes, research was there, but the focus was on undergrad.
Got it.
And that's what led to the undergrads doing exceptionally well.
Yeah. Was it the IIT Kanpur a nice campus, like a large campus, good infrastructure?
Amazing. At that time when I moved to IIT, we had mainframe computers and stuff, which were only in a few institutions, even in the US.
Yeah.
So very good infrastructure. It was a city in its own.
Right.
So we were about 30, 40 minutes away from the city, from Kanpur city itself. And the campus was all enclosed, and restaurants, barbershops, everything that you would need to live.
Yeah, IIT Bombay also, I think, has a campus like that, but eventually the city just kind of grew up around it, and now it's very much smack in the middle of the city. So after your IIT time, did you immediately go abroad to study?
Yeah, so, one of the things that IIT was at that time, and this was not planned, you go there, more than half the people are coming to the US for higher education.
Yeah.
In my case, the final year, I had a professor come down from Berkeley. He was creating artificial arms based on all the electrical engineering concept, but he was a biomedical engineering. So I realized that, that'll be great to learn. I have already done electrical engineering, to apply that to the human body. So decided to switch to biomedical engineering. And for my case, there was not much of biomedical engineering education in India at that time. So coming to the US made sense. But I would tell you, out of 200 kids in my class, 120, 150 came to the US.
Yeah.
So it was just a norm.
I forgive you for going to Ohio State, but was that a deliberate choice? Was it a program? Because I know nobody's excited about Ohio, I'd like to think, but what attracted you to that university?
That's funny. The whole process was interesting. My uncle used to live here in Chicago, and my parents, my father didn't have enough money to kind of even do the application fees, right?
Yeah.
So I actually filled up 10 applications, sent it to my uncle, and he decided and picked wherever he sent it. And I think Ohio State was one of them.
Yeah.
And when I looked at the program, two things were really unique about Ohio State. One, it had a biomedical engineering department at that time. And two, they gave me a full fellowship to come there. Okay. So not only just admission for the paid for the fees, but also paid me a stipend.
Yeah.
So
I've
those two made my decision to come here.
I've had guests go to some off the beaten path universities, like the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, or University of North Dakota State. And it's usually, a scholarship is one of the reasons. But I want to point out to our listeners one thing, that, you sent it to a relative, an elder in your family, and they took a major life decision for you. And in India, which is a high context culture, that's common.
Yep.
Whereas here, someone would be like, I would never let someone else pick mine.
Right.
But in our society, the inherent trust we have in our elders, and that also comes into things like choosing your spouse. Like in my grandparents' generation, they met each other the day of the wedding. So it just speaks to how high context culture India is.
Yeah. And to that point, I trusted my uncle in making the right decision for me. He knew who I was to a large extent. He knew where I'd fit in.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful to him, because Ohio State enjoyed it thoroughly. And the best part that I enjoyed about Ohio State was on Saturdays, I could go to the library during the football season, and there was nobody
there. Yeah.
Because I didn't understand football.
Yeah.
I understand soccer. I played soccer for IIT Kanpur.
Yeah.
But I did not understand football. So for me, football was the time to kind of go study with no
Yeah.
disturbance.
Interesting.
Today, that's a different story.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Ohio State for
Yeah.
football. I became that about 10, 15 years after I left Ohio State.
No, I went for my undergrad, and two, I had a friend from San Antonio who played high school football. So we would go to all the games together, and he taught me the rules. And I can say I know football rules as good as I know cricket rules, like the nuances of the
Wow.
game, right?
Mm.
Like if you're in cricket, you need 12 runs in 4 balls. You know all the possible outcomes and what can happen from here. So the same level of understanding I developed for football, where I can see the formation. I'm like, oh, they're gonna fake the punt now. You know, things like that. And I'm very grateful to that friend of mine. And I've been a Texas fan for 20 something years now. And my son is a big Texas football fan because of me.
Oh, really?
And the other thing was Texas was a really good team at that time. So all the more there was reason to be interested in it. I've always loved stadium atmospheres, but I would dare say that college football sometimes beats cricket in the atmosphere because the crowd is coordinated. In cricket, we generally don't have that.
Yeah.
It's maybe a Mexican wave here and there, but in football, it is, this is what you shout at third down. This is what you shout at defense. So that really adds to the atmosphere a lot.
Yeah, and actually, I would tell you, I never went to a football game at the Horseshoe while I was there.
Yeah.
My first game, and I was embarrassing because I became the external advisory board for biomedical engineering at Ohio State about 2 years ago. And I was there, and the dean said, well, let's go to the game. I'm like, sure. And then she asked me, when did you go to the last game? And it was very embarrassing, so I had to tell her
it
that.
It is one of the great programs.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So I had to tell her. I said, a long time ago. I don't remember.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I've enjoyed football. And actually, to your point, my son, my younger son, he's 23 years old now. But he's a much bigger fan of Ohio State than I am. Yeah.
But he didn't go.
He never went to Ohio State. He went to USC. So when there's a Ohio State game versus a USC game, he would prefer, he actually goes for Ohio State.
So when Texas won the national championship in 2006, I was in India. And I paid $400 in those days to get a satellite uplink done. And the thing wouldn't work. So I caught the last 3 minutes of the game, which were potentially the greatest 3 minutes of that game and probably of college football. So let's take a break right now. When we come back, we'll continue talking about your days in Ohio State, how you transitioned into your career from there. So stay tuned and we'll be right back after these messages.
I'm Chris Jakimick. I served in the United States Air Force and I deployed 3 times. Being a veteran, it's interwoven into your DNA. It is really the absence of the connection and the purpose that can really drive a lot of veterans to some negative thoughts. For those who are in a suicidal crisis, the window of time to save somebody's life is very short. Our duty is to protect ourselves and protect our families. And one way you can do that is store your weapons safely. Store all your guns securely. Help stop suicide.
Brought to you by End Family Fire and the Ad Council.
Are you ready to discover remarkable stories of resilience and cultural connection? This is Diasporaa, a show sharing the journeys of first-generation immigrants from the Indian subcontinent now building their lives in North America. Inspiring, insightful, and always engaging, Diasporaa offers a unique perspective on the immigrant experience. Join me, Aditya Mehta, my guests, on the Diasporaa Show every Wednesday at 2 p.m. right here on KKNW.
Seattle, Tacoma, Antwerp? That's right. We're streamed worldwide on our app and on the web at 1150kknw.com.
Welcome back to Diasporaa on KKNW, where we share interesting stories of first-generation immigrants from the Indian subcontinent. We are talking to Shalabh Chandra, inventor and healthcare executive. Before we get back to talking to Shalabh, I want to take a moment to remind you to subscribe to our channel on YouTube. You can find all our episodes in video format there, right from the first one. So, you were at Ohio State for your master's, and what was your next step after college? What was the first thing that you did?
So, when I was coming from India, my plan was I'll do my PhD and then go back to India and teach like the professor who had come back. So that was my plan. And I had applied for PhD admissions, gotten into Purdue, also had an admission at Ohio State. my advisor at that time told me that, oh, you know what, you should go and look at Cleveland Clinic. There's a position open there for a research engineer. And I told her, look, I want to really pursue my PhD. And she's like, oh, just give it a shot. So I went there, and the head of the cardiology, echocardiography department, Dr. Jim Thomas, he was an astrophysicist who had become a cardiologist. And his math, think about this, IIT Kanpur, biomedical engineering, lot of math and stuff like that, a lot of calculus and so on. His math was stronger than mine. And he just impressed me right away. So he said, look, Shalabh, you can come here, you can work here, and then you can also pursue your PhD. That led me to change my plans and go work with him. Started working there and was working 80, 90 hours. Sort of never stopped with that, but 80, 90 hours a week. And because I was working so much and for multiple different projects, I never got to do my PhD, but was a very rewarding exercise. I mean, I learned a lot about cardiology, learned a lot about echocardiography, published a lot of papers, presented a lot of papers at conferences, and so on. So that's what I did for the next 4 years. And then one of my friends, we were casually meeting, and he's like, look, there's a position in a company called Picker International, which then became Phillips. Would you be interested? And after a lot of discussions and stuff, I said, all right, you know what, I'll apply. Yeah. And ended up joining Phillips.
Yeah.
In the CT division.
Tell us about the interesting thing that you invented at Phillips.
Yeah, so that's what happened is that now I've dealt with cardiology. I understand cardiology, and I know cardiologists, right?
Yeah.
I moved to CT division, and this was within the first year. I was like, well, why can't we build cardiac CT? And I was laughed at because, Shalabh, you don't understand physics of CT. You're defying the physics of CT. It's never going to work. And my boss actually found a guy who had tried this 17 years ago to talk to me. He gave me his paper, read the paper, understood what it is, understood what the flaws were with the approach, about 20 things that had gone wrong, why it couldn't be done. In the meantime, what I had done by me just talking to people openly about why can't we do cardiac CT, I found 2 other people. One was a phenomenally, actually a genius, Dominic Heuscher, reconstruction engineer, so reconstructing the images for CT. And the other one was an electronics engineer, one of the best electronics in CT as well. So the 2 of them, Dominic, me, and actually 3 of us met and said, why can't we do it? We should do it. So when the paper, that individual talked to me about the paper and why the 20 things wouldn't work or didn't work for him, I met with these 2 guys and said, well, what do you think? And over the 17 years, things had progressed a lot in CT that 15 of them we knew that we could solve. 5 problems, issues that he stated we could. We didn't know what. And we said, you know what, let's give it a shot. And that's what we did. So the 3 of us and a cardiologist friend of mine, Dr. Mario Garcia, and he's the head of cardiology at Montefiore Health Systems in New York right now. So he would stop by at 7 p.m. and we would work till midnight, trying to figure out where can we image the heart that we can get a good, clear picture. Yeah. So if you think about CT, just a very brief thing on CT. CT, when you know of anyone or if you had gotten a CT, they say, take a breath in and hold. Well, the reason why they say hold is the object in the center that they're imaging has to stay stationary. Well, the heart doesn't.
Yeah.
Heart is never stationary.
Yeah.
So how would you image that? Because you cannot construct an image.
Yeah.
So we figured that things out after a lot of brainstorming with the cardiologist. We realized when the ventricle expands, so when the blood gets filled into the ventricle, it expands, and for 1/4 of the cardiac cycle, it stays stationary before it pumps the blood out. So we're like, oh, we can target that. So then we needed a ECG monitor that would tell us where to scan, because where's that cycle? Because in the ECG signal, you know exactly where that cycle is, but that need to be timed with the CT scanner. The reconstructions had to be done there. And when we started, we could image only like 1 or 2 millimeters of slice for the heart.
Yeah.
So what we will have to do is we'll have to come back and stitch them together.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, all the oppositions, all the lack of support, 1997 is when I had the idea. We're working with these guys. And by 1999, we were presenting in Austria, in Vienna, our solution and success.
Wow. Very fascinating stuff. So do you have a patent?
Yes.
Just a couple of episodes ago, I learned about patents. Does the company share the spoils of the technology with the person whose idea it was, or do you just get a little cube which says innovate or whatever it is?
So you get a certificate, and the company has to pay for the patents. I guess that's expensive. As a inventor, at that time, if I remember right, we got $750 for the patent. So I got 3 patents. I got about 2,200 or so money.
I'm gonna guess Phillips made a little bit more than that.
As a matter of fact, what I talked to the general manager, who was at that time, and he had presented, Phillips actually gained 3% market share because of what we did in CT. So hundreds of millions of dollars gained in that stuff. Yeah. But I have to give this to Phillips as well. So yes, that was only 2,250, but that leads my detour right to the business.
Yeah.
I actually asked my boss and said, look, I've invented this, a lot of market share gain and so on and so forth. Academic centers we could get introduced to and now win deals in academic centers for Phillips. But can you at least pay for my MBA?
Yeah.
Executive MBA. And so after a little bit of going back and forth and stuff, actually they paid for the executive MBA. That changed my trajectory for my career as well. Yeah. So I have to give a little more credit to Phillips on that.
With, there's been growing skepticism over the value added by an MBA. In India, I think it's a very clear reason is because people do it right after their undergrad. And to me, an MBA teaches you new things, but it also helps you understand what you don't know and then fill those gaps. And to do that, you should have done something to relate back to, which is work experience. But do you feel the value of the MBA is diminishing in the US if for someone who would take it today? And if so, how would one mitigate that and ensure they get more value?
So let me tell you about my experience, and then I'll relate to that question real quick. For me, think about this. For the first 12 years, I'm a research scientist. The only thing I know how to do is research, publish papers, patents, things like that.
Yeah.
When I joined MBA, I didn't understand P&L. I didn't understand cash flow. I didn't understand balance sheets. I didn't understand any of that.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a huge. I wouldn't have been able to switch my career if I hadn't gotten an MBA. So for me, significantly useful. So it depends on individuals as well. Having said that, if you look at the general terms, nowadays, what you learn by, both my kids are in startups, right? The amount that they learn being part of a startup, the practical knowledge that they get about running a business and what it takes to run a business and be successful is a lot more through their experience than they would learn in an MBA course. Having said that, there's one advantage of doing an MBA, especially the way I did it, which is 10, 12 years after I started my career, is that in an MBA, you're not, and you mentioned this earlier, the BNI analogy there, the MBA is not just what you learn from the professors, but significant amount is your cohort.
Sure.
The people that you meet, the networking that you do, and so on. And that has been absolutely significant.
Yeah. And I say it's like a buffet where you pay a price to get in, but then if you go hungry, it's your fault.
Yes.
It's up to you how much you draw out of it. I had people in my London Business School class where during the class they were working because their employer had sponsored it. And then they would not come for any of the social events. They would not join any of the committees and the group. And then at the end, they were like, this was not a transformative experience that they claimed it would be. But you have to do something as well for it. I was the last guy to leave every networking event during it. I really maximized the whole experience, and it really, the ROI has been more than, recovered in a very short time.
See, what you mentioned is very important, right? That mindset. So for me, when I started the course, we were doing Finance 101, and I was sitting next to a guy who was the VP of Finance in a company, and we were talking, and I said, look, I don't understand this. And he's like, look, you've never seen a P&L, you've never seen this, you've never seen that. I'm like, no. So for a minute, I was like,
imposter syndrome.
This is really bad.
Yeah.
And then the next second, I was like, you know what? I will learn the most. I will have the most to gain in here through this process. And then the second part that you said is about building that relationship with the cohorts, spending the time networking, spending the time going for Philly cheesesteaks.
Sure.
When I'm a vegetarian. So I go there at 2 a.m. with my friends.
Yeah.
Well, everybody's getting Philly cheesesteak. And I'd get to the window and say, can I have a Philly cheesesteak, but can you hold the steak, please?
Yeah.
So after a few times they were okay, but the first time they're like, what?
Yeah.
So we'll charge you the same amount. Okay, that's all right. But it was really about that relationship, about that networking.
Yeah.
And that really pays off. So
Yeah.
the attitude that you brought to the table is exactly what people need to have these days.
Yeah. My wife did her MBA from the institute called NMIMS in Bombay. It's a very well-known MBA program.
Yeah.
She majored in pharma marketing. So she benefited from the brand name, the pharma-specific program, and she benefited from the cohort because now those people are all over the world in different pharmaceutical companies. But she didn't gain the knowledge aspect. And for me, it was a executive program, and it was 1 week every month, and then back home. And this week could be in London or Dubai or New York. So I was live implementing things in my business while learning. Once there was a negotiation strategy class, which is one of the most popular classes of BS. I learned something in the morning session. I changed my pricing for a contract I was going to bid on live. And by the evening, I came back to the professor and said, we got the contract. so my ROI was kind of exponentially, it was on steroids because of that nature of the program.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for that program and the fact that I did it and that I was the youngest in the class. And like you said, I had the most to learn. I went in thinking, like I must be really good to get into this program. And then I see a billionaire, I see an ex-astronaut, I see a private equity turnaround CEO, and I see the Disney Middle East chief marketing officer. And then I'm like, yeah, no, I don't know how I got in. And then one interesting thing happened, like you said, I was sitting next to the ex-astronaut. He was running I think the Rolls-Royce jet engines factory at the time, if I remember correctly, it was 10 years ago. And I was like, I had never worked in a large company. So I was blown away by like, how does that even work? Like, how does a factory work? How do such large multi-year projects of developing new jet engines take? Like, I was so blown away. And he was like, how do you just go out and quit your family business and start a tech startup? Like, I could never do that.
Yeah.
So what you said about like you not having expertise in one side of things, but that VP could probably never invent something.
No, totally.
Right. So,
Yeah.
and that mutual respect was I was very pleasantly surprised to have that. And I've had a couple of people on the show from London Business School, from my cohort as well, who live in this part of the world. And they were the type of people like me who just really went out and networked nonstop. Was yours a full-time program or was it an executive?
No, it was an
program?
executive MBA program.
Did you feel that the entrepreneurs in the class were more relaxed or got more value out of it than the persons who were like yourself who were doing a job?
Yeah, that's interesting. So entrepreneurs meaning who were full-time?
Who were
doing that
doing their own business? Like I was
they were running their own business. You would think absolutely.
Yeah.
Because if you're running your own business, you can apply the principles. You can pick the courses that are more applicable to the business. And you can apply the principles like you said. Like you learn in the morning and you apply it in the afternoon and you're seeing the results of it. Yeah. It works, doesn't work, you can relearn and so on. I think, and I agree with you. That's why I say it depends on the individuals, how much they get out of it.
And more control over the time that you can put in as
Totally.
well. Because I would see the ones who are continuing
Working
their
full-time,
full-time jobs, as soon as the break comes, they're starting to answer emails.
Right.
So, the fact that they had a less of a financial burden got traded off in them not enjoying the non-class
activities and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's a very good point, actually. So thinking back to this, luckily I had a boss. When I told him I needed to do this and I'm going to be serious about this, he was very supportive. So I could delegate a lot of things to my team. I had actually built the team also by that time. So I could delegate a lot to the team. And I leveraged the time, luckily for me, because I needed to. Yeah. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gotten as much out of it.
Yeah.
So being a scientist to a business world was a massive switch.
Yeah. Another funny story was in my interview. We had to do a presentation. And, it's like, why should we admit you? So I answered the question that you won't find any other person who's the son of a family-owned stockbroking company from India here. And that's a unique perspective. And on my first day, I think my first elective, sitting next to me was a guy who was the son of a family-owned stockbroking company from Bombay.
From India.
So I said, so much for that.
But you did bring unique perspective. I mean, there was two of you out of how many?
Yeah, the good part was that you could have up to 45 different cohorts in one elective. So he was from one of those.
Oh, okay. So a different cohort.
Different cohort. I think he did the full time. So you had the full times, you had the masters in management guys, you had the Columbia program, Asia cohort. I was part of the Dubai cohort. You had the locals, you had the New York cohort. They would all be there. And then because it was 2 cohorts a year, you could have people 2 cohorts back and 2 cohorts front, all in the college at the same time.
Right.
And then you had the exchange program, folks. So you had people from like potentially anywhere in the world in that. And because it's the UK, it was 89% international. Versus here, even a Wharton might be 35% international. So all those things really added up. I only applied to LBS and on June 1st. And June 9th, I took my GMAT. And with the printout, went on a flight to Dubai. And then June 21st, I was in. It was extremely fast.
Oh my God.
Most of my major life developments have this path. It just, my Canada PR took 3 weeks. Yeah. 3 weeks later, I had PR and I was going to move to Canada. With that, let's take our second break. And when we come back, I want to talk about the time you spent working in China and some of the interesting hobbies that you have. So we'll be right back after these messages.
My name is Teresa Barber. I was in the United States Navy and I served overseas in the Middle East and Africa. Early on in my career, I had a commander that taught our suicide prevention training, and the very next day he took his own life. 90% of suicide attempts involving a gun are fatal. My way of continuing my service is to help protect my community by being a responsible gun owner and by storing firearms safely. Store all your guns securely. Help stop suicide.
Brought to you by End Family Fire and the Ad Council.
Hello, I'm Chris Erdman. Every Wednesday at 8 a.m. on KKNW, I sit down with inspiring entrepreneurs, creative minds, and game changers to uncover the real stories behind their business. On my show, Made of More, we explore the challenges that they've overcome, the breakthroughs that they've celebrated, and the mindset that drives them forward. If you're ready to unlock your full entrepreneurial potential, Made of More is the show for you, because here we know you are made of more. Every Wednesday at 8 a.m. on KKNW.
Wondering what's on next on Alternative Talk 1150? Check out 1150kknw.com.
Welcome back to Diasporaa on KKNW, where we share interesting stories of first-generation immigrants from South Asia. We're talking to Shalabh Chandra, Senior Executive in the medical devices and healthcare industry. Before we jump back into the conversation, if you like listening to our show, please consider following us on Instagram or leaving us a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcast. So Shalabh, you spent some time in China. Tell us more about how that happened and what were you doing in China?
So it started in 2004 when, as soon as I graduated, actually the 3rd semester of coursework, I was like, all right, I've got to switch to the business world. I've done science, enough research. So I went to my boss, who had seen me invent cardiac CT, was, respected me for a lot of those things. And I went to him and said, look, I'm done with science. I want to switch to a business world. And he sat me down and he says, Shalabh, just because you're doing an MBA from a good school, please don't think I'm going to give you a business role. I'm like, oh no. So I started looking around. I was not going to give up. So started looking around, almost got a job with another department within Phillips. So he realized he would lose me. So he threw me a bone. There was the CEO of Phillips Healthcare had started a joint venture with a company in China. None of the others underlings really supported my boss. Same, did not care about it that much. I mean, he was following the orders, but didn't care about that much. So he gave me that role. And he smiled when he gave me that role.
Yeah.
And what I didn't realize is that it was a very difficult. Long story short, in about 2.5 years, I was successful making that happen. And what I really liked about the folks in China is they were very hardworking, very determined, very hungry.
Yeah.
So I had a great experience, did that. But that was the short one where my family was still in the U.S. I was traveling 2 weeks in China, 2 weeks in the U.S., and so on. This is 2004, 2006. Fast forward to 2010. The same guy now is the CEO. My boss is the CEO of another company called Analogic. He calls me and says, hey, I know you did a great job in China. Would you be willing to go to China this time? We're starting a factory. We're trying to do this. We've tried this for 2 years. Hasn't worked really well. I think you'll do well. Great. So I had other options within Phillips, but I decided to take that role and moved with my family to China. So the first thing that I had, doing this, of course, uprooting my family I was in Orlando at that time, uprooting my family there. My older one, 2010, was about 12 years old. So he sort of had a sense for things. He had friends, and he was not happy that we were moving to China. So when we went there for the first visit, was to make sure my family was happy that they wanted to be there, make sure that they had admission in school, and that we had a place to live. So we found a great place to live. We all enjoyed it for the next 6 years that we lived. It was an 8,000 square foot house with a private swimming pool in a gated community.
Yeah.
We had chauffeurs
Yeah.
and cars for driving. We had an individual who'd come in and help us for the housework, 8 hours a day for 6 days a week.
Yeah, moving as
Solid.
a expat with a job in hand and a senior level job is a
Yeah.
completely different
Totally.
experience than moving as an immigrant.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So the other thing was that in order to get my family all acclimatized, right across from the hotel where we stayed the first week for just trying and figuring things out, there was a place to get a massage. So we went there for a foot massage, all four of us sitting in chairs and music playing, TV on, and we get an hour-long foot massage. And at that time cost us $20, $30. So all of that sold the stuff
Sure.
to the family.
Yeah.
And we all moved a month later or 2 months later.
Yeah.
We were in Shanghai.
What was it like learning such a difficult language at an older age?
Yeah, good point. Very good point. It's harder, right? But I was determined. Again, as I've been determined across my whole career in different things, I was like, all right, I got to learn it. And the biggest thing in that is that there's a lot of hurdle, right? I mean, there are 4 tones in Mandarin. So if you say ma, that's mother. Ma is a horse.
Hmm.
So
You don't want to be mixing this.
Exactly. And so there are many things like that, 4 tones that occur. Difficulty is you're trying to say something, you're saying something different, and you're embarrassing yourself. I couldn't care less. I just
Right.
wanted to learn. So I would talk with my admin in Chinese. I would talk with the taxi driver in Chinese. I'll talk to the IE, the person who was helping us at home, in Chinese, in Mandarin, and just kept on it.
Yeah.
I kept at it. And a lot of foreigners who go there, they'll be very passionate about learning. Then they discover how difficult it
Right.
is, and they give up within a few months. I just didn't
Right.
give up. That was the only
Right.
difference.
Did your spouse and kids also learn, or was it just you who went whole hog on
So
it?
my kids can speak and write Mandarin better than I can.
Great.
My wife.
It's a very important life skill.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Some languages are much more strategically important than others. In college, I had, friends who were learning Portuguese, Italian. I'm like, it's not a commercially important language.
Right.
You'd rather want to be studying Mandarin or Hindi or Arabic or Spanish,
Yeah.
or Russian for that matter.
Yeah.
How are Indians perceived in China? Because at the political level, we're frenemies.
Yes.
And you don't interact with Chinese people in day-to-day life when you live in India, or people from most nationalities. We're such a big country where everybody's Indian. Even our big cities are not global melting pots by any means.
Yeah.
So how did most local average Chinese person perceive India and Indians?
Yeah. So actually, personally, I never felt any of that at all.
Yeah.
I went there and worked with the team. I had, just a quick thing regarding the business side of things. I was started when we had about 35 people,
Yeah.
less than $5 million in revenue in Asia, and ended up with like 350 people, almost $120 million in revenue in 5 years. And it was only possible because the team believed in me, that the team worked with me. And of course, I had to, in the beginning when I went there, people said, well, your leadership style is not going to work because they just want direction. And yes, did I feel a little bit of that in the beginning? Yes. But very quickly, based on the way you interacted and the way you talked to them and what I did with them, all of that changed and was as if you were in the US, right?
Yeah.
They were very responsive. They would tell me where I was wrong. They would work with me. They would do everything possible. As a matter of fact, when I was there, even when I left, there was a wall that the HR had created, and I was in the middle of the picture, and there was pictures of people, and it formed a symbol of love. And when I left, I said, look, you should take that out. No, you're the father of this place, and you'll stay here as long as this wall is there. So that's the kind of relationship I built with my team.
Yeah.
And I'm still very, very close to them.
Was there curiosity about India and Indian culture?
Totally. But I had a lot of fun with it too. So one time in a team building session, and I hope my wife doesn't listen to this part, But in the team building session, we were there as a group and we were talking about the culture and spouses and stuff like that. And I said, oh, yeah, no, Indian wives are very different. They're like, how so? It's like, look, when I get up in the morning, breakfast is served on bed. Everything is ready for me to take a shower, right? My breakfast is, when I get down, all the clothes are ironed and everything is ready for me. When I come home, she presses my feet and there's a rose petal laid all the way to the bathroom for me to kind of wash my feet or do whatever. And they were like, wow, really? That's how Indian wives are. Well, it lasted about 2 months till they met my wife and then everything collapsed.
Right.
On that. So it was just, we had fun with it.
Yeah.
But it was culturally, they're very similar.
It is a high context culture.
Exactly.
Like India is.
Very similar.
Yeah.
I'd say very respect for the elderly, building relationships and working through relationships. And in any business, you have, of course, your product has to be good, but there's also a relationship part that works, even in the US.
Yeah.
And that's pretty high context there in terms of relationship. And what I believed, what I learned from my experience through born and brought up in India, living in the US for the longest time, and then lived in China for the longest time, being embedded there, 3 most populous countries.
Yeah.
What I learned is that people are exactly the same.
Sure.
They have a heart and a mind. And if you can engage with them with that perspective, it doesn't matter color, race, gender, doesn't matter. People are exactly the same. And you have to engage with them at that level. I mean, in terms of what it takes. Of course, there's always a thin veneer of culture, right? Once you break that, there are certain things that you don't do. 4 is not a lucky number in China, right?
Yeah.
You don't give anybody 400 kwai, right? So you don't do that kind of thing. But so once you learn those things, and you break that veneer, you've got a human being that you're dealing with. And that's how I dealt with, and I had a lot of success, and they're still very close to me. They are like family to me.
That makes sense. On the note about curiosity about Indian culture, I think most Indian people don't realize how much soft power India has. And I think people get surprised when they see a foreigner who knows about Bollywood, for example. I had gone to Indonesia and Bollywood is huge there. And all these people start singing songs from Kuch Kuch Hota Hai. And for us, it was just very pleasantly surprising that, there's a Hindu place outside of India, like Bali. And all these people know Indian culture and they're watching Jai Veer Hanuman in Bahasa. So most people in India don't realize until they travel extensively that the world, and it's a mostly positive image. We're not associated with, we're associated with yoga and software and Bollywood. These are all positive associations. And our food, for example. So
No, I agree with you. I mean, that's exactly the experience I had there as well in China. I actually enjoyed it a lot, built very, very strong relationships. There was also an expat community, which was all different people. Actually, yesterday, I had a friend of mine from Shanghai. The husband is Danish and the wife is Lithuanian. And their son, they all were at our place after, many years. But it's just had created a community, not just with the local Chinese, but also with the
other
international
expats.
community.
Yeah. And Shanghai would have a lot of people from all over the
world. Out of the numbers that I remember, out of 23 million population, 1 million were expats.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
that's huge.
Significant.
For such a large country, that's a very huge number.
And the other thing is that the experience I had with the government as well was very positive. They would always, from time to time, come and visit me and say, how can you grow your business more? What can we do to support you?
Interesting.
It was very positive.
Yeah.
Across the board.
That's good to know. The only place I've felt that with the government in India is in Gujarat. In general, things are getting better at a national level in terms of ease of doing business. But Gujarat, I've always felt that.
Wow.
I had an interaction with Mr. Modi when he was Chief Minister of Gujarat. I was part of a business delegation from Bombay. He was so well prepared. He answered everything with data. And he didn't talk about other political parties. He didn't talk about... So one person was trying to establish a manufacturing unit for a storage warehouse. And he said that, we're trying to get this permit and we've had a lot of trouble with it. So as the Chief Minister, he says, I apologize for the experience you're having in Gujarat. And this is the single window clearance for these types of projects. You reach out to them and they have a SLA to get back to you in 48 hours. And and this was like early 2010s. So I was very, very surprised by
And no
that.
wonder he's making a big difference then for the country as well.
I could do a whole separate episode on the way things are getting transformed in India right now. I can really see the scale. Earlier, if it's $1 billion company, you've heard of it. Now there are, $10 billion companies you've never heard of.
True.
You have an interesting hobby, which is biking. So tell me more about your recent biking exploits. I think you went somewhere pretty close by on a bike recently.
Yeah, so I used to bike when a lot younger. But then family happened, kids happened, and all that stuff, and stopped doing a lot of that. And so gave up biking because of the kids, and actually got back into biking because of my kid. We were, on a vacation coming back, and I talked to my older son that I'd like to do this STP, Seattle to Portland. And we talked about this, and then he said, well, Dad, if you're serious, let's do it. I'm like, I'm too busy, maybe next year. And he said to me, Dad, you're going to be a year older next year.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
So we signed up, right? And I had no clue how to train. We somehow got a group, one of the groups, Asha group, which is actually part of a group that trains with the Cascade group that organizes the whole event. Trained with them, phenomenal group of people. I was able to do it in 2 days. And the next year I came back, I'm like, why don't we do it in 1 day? So 2023 was my first time when I did it in 2 days. Then last year I did it in 1 day. This year I did it in 1 day and shaved off about half an hour to 45 minutes of the time.
Yeah.
Right? Thanks to my team.
Yeah.
It was really good leaders and people working with me.
I hear you're trying to recruit our common friend Aaron to do it with
Yes, actually, yes. Aaron has promised that he will do it with me next year.
Yeah.
So I'm actually recruiting for that. I'm very passionate about biking. I also want to explore going out and doing it in other countries as well. And my son is very willing to do it with me.
Yeah. One of our recent guests, his name is Khaja Ahmed. He's a cybersecurity expert. He spent several days in Europe biking around with his friends recently.
Yeah. I should connect with him and find out.
Yeah. Let's move into our weekly segments. So let's spin the wheel and see where we land on. So this one is called Mango Memories. Most people from our part of the world tend to have fond memories of eating mangoes. Do you have a mango memory?
Absolutely. One of my friends and his mother would call it the ek naak amount of eating mango. So ek naak is one nose. Right?
Yeah.
So you sit on the floor.
Yeah.
And you have to eat till the peels pile up to your nose.
Oh my God.
And this was Malda. Malda is a specially
variety of
a very unique variety that you find in Patna, Bihar area. And the mango is so big and juicy that when you bite into it, as a kid, when we would bite into it, you couldn't get to the and you couldn't get to the seed.
Yeah.
Like 2 or 3 bites before you could get it to the seed.
Yeah.
Just an amazing taste of mango. So
I dropped a really bad dad joke with eating mangoes. That eating mangoes is like doing well in life. You try till you succeed. Depending on where people are from.
That applies to Malda very well.
Yeah.
You have to try for a while.
Yeah. Depending on where people are from in India, I see different varieties. So if you're from the south, the Banganapalli is the favorite usually.
Okay.
If you're from Maharashtra, it's usually Hafus or Alfonso.
Oh, right.
That's the Portuguese name. I personally like Rajapuri and Kesar very much. They are niche varieties, but we have an organic farm in Gujarat and we have 800 mango trees. And we grow these and we have mango pulp all year round because of that. We have a freezer.
Oh my God.
And we've always tried to sneak some into the US as well. So that brings us to the end of our show. Thank you for listening to Diasporaa. We hope you enjoyed hearing Shalabh's amazing story. Remember to check out our show notes for links and more information about the topics we discussed today. Diasporaa is part of the Speaking Current network of shows and podcasts, all of which are dedicated to inspiring listeners to build lives of meaning, connection, and value. You can find the Speaking Current network of shows, including Diasporaa, wherever you get your podcasts. And you can also find us on YouTube. Lastly, if you know someone who has a story that can be shared on our show, feel free to reach out to us on any of our social media handles. We'll be back next week with another interesting story from the South Asian diaspora. Until then, take care and stay curious. And Shalabh, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Aditya.